Hi, this is Tom Rhodes. Please join me as I scour the four corners of the earth to bring you interesting and intelligent, funny people who will enrich your life with wisdom and laughter. I'll take you to Europe, Australia, all over America. I might take you to the peaks of Machu Picchu, the canals of Amsterdam, the Great Wall of China, or the swamps of Florida, and certainly the many, many comedy clubs and comedy theaters all over the world. Come hang out with me and meet the many interesting people that pop up in my life as I travel the world as a stand-up comedian.
You're listening to Tom Rhodes Radio.
Karate kick, baby.
Rock and roll.
Welcome to Tom Rhodes Radio Smart Camp, otherwise known as the Tom and Ashna Show. Hey, we want to start out with a loving commercial. Hey, why don't you support the podcast by going to patreon.com/
Tom Rhodes Radio Smart Camp.
And you could become a contributing member. You could even attain Golden Buddhist status.
What does it mean, Tom? What does it mean?
For $20 a month, you can receive a postcard from me from all over the world. You get access to secret goodies on the Patreon thing.
But you can choose. You don't have to pay $20 a month. You can also do 15,
it could
10,
be
5.
10, whatever.
There's all kind of levels, all kind of different goodies. So you can choose whatever you want. You know, you can even do just $1 a month. It would be fantastic if you just join and come and become our patron.
And you could think of it as your way of supporting the arts. And if you don't want to become a Patreon contributing member, you can directly sponsor the Tom Rhodes World of Entertainment by purchasing my brand new album called All Hail Laughter. It's available on iTunes and Amazon. It's a double album. And so it's two shows for the price of one. And
it's one in Minneapolis and one in San Francisco.
Right. So, you could own my jokes and have them in your ear and in your brain whenever you need them.
And
hey,
if you
I'm
think...
feeling a little sad today. I think I'll have a little burst of Tom Rhodes. Play.
And if you think, okay, I don't have any money, you can just use the Amazon banner on the TomRhodesRadio.com.
Yeah, is it TomRhodes.net and TomRhodesRadio.com? TomRhodes.net, you go through the Amazon banner when you want to buy some stuff. Maybe some books we're going to talk about. You can buy them through the Amazon banner, and that also helps us.
Yay!
So, we are speaking to you now from room number 4 at the Mill Valley Inn.
The best hotel.
Mill Valley Inn. If you know what, I think, adventurous people listening to this podcast, this episode, should do this Northern California trip we're going to talk about on this episode. And you should stay at the Mill Valley Inn. It's, they got a nice little breakfast. And at 5 o'clock, they put out wine and cheeses. It's right across the street from the Throckmorton Theater, which is where I'm doing a show tonight. It's where we met Robin Williams twice. Robin Williams lived in the area, and Robin Williams always hung out there. Mort Saul hangs out there now. And the building, the Throckmorton Theater, was built in like the 1880s, and Charlie Chaplin played there when he was a touring vaudeville act in the 1890s.
Wow.
Before he had ever shot his first piece of celluloid film. He played at the Throckmorton Theater.
What an honor.
Yeah, and this was actually like a mill valley. That's why it has the name. They would cut the redwood trees here for all the homes that were being built in San Francisco.
And this hotel is almost in the middle of a redwood.
Yeah, there's a little grove of redwoods on the back.
Forests.
Yeah, those rooms in the back of the property, right along the creek. Remember when we had the room there and we left the door open and we listened to the creek gurgle?
I don't remember that. We left the door open?
Yeah.
That's not smart.
Well, for bugs. Anyway, so there's been so much horrific news in the last 24, 48 hours just murder, mayhem, chaos on a grand scale. I wanted to. I've only seen this newspaper here, and it really says a lot about Mill Valley. There's a newspaper here available, and it's called Positive News, and it's just all positive news stories. Like Timmy Johnson rode a wheelie halfway down Elm Street on Thursday, and
Oh, it's local news.
yeah, I think
Cute.
it's only like local news or Northern California, but it's called Positive News. It's probably available online, and the stories are always like, you know, make you feel happy about life kind of stories. Like Rainbow Burritos seem to be putting a lot of extra chicken in their burritos lately, and you know, stories about whales and
There's always whales involved in happy news. What is that?
whales and rainbows and puppies and kittens.
Yeah.
And stuff. So I went to go get one. I ran around the corner to the newspaper box where I used to find it, and I didn't see it.
Oh, that's because everybody wanted to have some positive news after
Okay,
this
good.
horrific, event.
You have such a nicer way of looking at the world than me, because I was walking back from the newspaper boxes thinking, well, that just shows you how shitty life is now. The positive news doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, I see.
And your way of looking at it is, oh, everybody must have needed positive news.
Yeah, exactly.
So how about some Mr. Martin joke time for some joke premises?
Yes, and I have to tell you up front that I created a joke. I wrote a joke for Tom, word by word, and it worked fantastically.
Okay, I'll do that one last.
No, you're not gonna do that. You're gonna do that on a CD later.
Oh, okay.
It's not
All
gonna
right
be.
then.
No, our fans have to be surprised.
Okay.
And anyway, the joke is really fantastic and it's hilarious. And he opened with it a few shows,
In Arcata.
and he
and
got
in
an applause
Ukiah.
break.
Yeah.
So I'm such a great comedian as well.
The old adage that behind every great man is a great woman. That's you're keeping that tradition alive, Smoochie.
Yes, that's right.
And you're tired of it.
I'm tired of what?
And not getting credit for
Oh yeah, that's why I'm every podcast I'm saying, yeah, that was my idea.
I wrote
yeah,
that.
No, yeah, I wrote that. Oh no, I told you that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we had Hurricane Irma hit Florida. What was it? Harvey hit Houston, and then Maria just hit Puerto Rico. You gave me this piece of information
Again.
also, that hurricanes that have female names, the property damage assessment is always lower than hurricanes that have male names. So
No, let me tell this better.
Okay.
When it has a female name, people underestimate the power of the hurricane. So the damage is always higher than normal because people underestimate how powerful this hurricane is going to be.
Oh no, that's not.
That's what it is, Tom.
No. The way I read it was that the damage assessed after the hurricane hit, the value was always lower than if it was a male hurricane. So even
What do you mean the value?
like when they say $43 million worth of damage to Puerto Rico or $4
Right,
billion.
and you say when it's a female, it's lower value.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't make sense. I see what you're saying because you're thinking about wages. You think about wages, right?
Yeah.
But this is the real explanation. It's psychology. It's when the hurricane has a female name, like Irma, versus give me a male name.
Chuck.
Hurricane Chuck,
Hurricane
really?
Chuck is a fucking great hurricane waiting to happen.
Okay, whatever. So when Hurricane Chuck will come and blast over USA, people will be shitting their pants more than if they would say Hurricane Sally is coming to touch the coast of America.
Hurricane Louise, run
It just
for your
gets
life.
underestimated,
Right.
and that's an interesting phenomenon, right?
Okay. Well.
And that's why the damage assessment is higher because people underestimate it.
Okay, well, I misunderstood, and then the joke I had for it doesn't work now.
No, it does work because you say
No,
something.
because even in the hurricane world, women aren't getting a fair shake.
But it's still like that because people should be feared, not based on a female name or not.
Well, I mean, if they really want to make people afraid, they should give them names other than Hurricane Holy Fuck and Hurricane Run for Your Life and Hurricane Everybody's Gonna Die, motherfucker, get out of there now. That's,
Hurricane, you better get the hurricane insurance, Hurricane.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a great joke. That's a good premise.
That's a good premise. And Hurricane Irma was a Category 5 hurricane for 3 continuous days, which is the longest, most powerful,
intense hurricane,
ever recorded. But it was Irma, so people didn't take it serious. And then
no, that's not true. What are you saying? They didn't take it serious?
No, according to the information that you just laid out.
Oh, it's compared to if it had a real name.
Hurricane Bob or Hurricane Danny.
But because of the climate change, we're gonna get less hurricanes, but they're gonna be intenser.
Yeah. Okay. Climate change, does it exist anymore? Does the American government properly recognize that anymore?
As long as you, Tom Rhodes, recognize.
Oh, I recognize it. I recognize a lot of problems. So, and then we had this, nuclear war threat with Trump at the UN.
It's still going on, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, now it's kind of in the back of everyone's mind now because of that horrific shooting that happened in Las Vegas. But I was telling you the story. When I was in 8th grade, I had a social studies teacher named Mr. Bates. And back then, the Cold War was raging. Reagan was president, and Reagan and the Russians, everyone thought, oh my God, we could be incinerated in a nuclear blast.
How old were you?
12, 13. So that's what you're thinking. We could die any minute.
So everybody had sex at night? 12-year-old.
I think it accelerated the sexual practices of people when I was in high school. The fact that we could all be incinerated. But Mr. Bates told our class if they ever announced that nuclear weapons have been launched, you should go to the refrigerator, get a beer, and go sit in the backyard and sip your beer and enjoy the light show because no one will survive. He said, no matter what, like ducking under things, hiding in a basement, whatever you've been told, no one will survive. And we're like fucking 12, 13-year-old kids. What's the point of going to Little League practice after school if we're all going to be incinerated?
Oh, that's great. It reminds me of that scene in 2012, that movie with John Cusack.
The one you love so much, yeah.
I know. Who's the actor again? He did...
John Cusack.
No, the other one. White Man Can Jump with Wesley Snipes.
Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson. He's playing the nutcase that resembles that nutcase. That real nutcase on the radio. Alex Jones?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like an Alex Jones type, having this radio station from his truck, from his van, from his radio van. And when the earthquake happens, he just stands there and says, "Fucking awesome!" And then he gets incinerated by the whole.
Oh well, he obviously had Mr. Bates's social
advice.
Studies class.
Yeah.
That's perfect. So we had this. Our trip's ending tomorrow. We had this great swing of Northern California. We flew into San Francisco, rented a car, drove all the way up to Arcata. And Arcata is where Humboldt State University is. And also Humboldt County, most everyone knows, Humboldt County is famous for its outdoor California weed. And I would consider it the greatest weed in the world.
Really? Why?
Well, like Amsterdam, a lot of the weed is too strong, and it's made in grow houses with grow lights. A lot of indoor weed, you may as well be smoking crack. You got a glass pipe and 2 hits off of a nugget, and your like brain is blasted.
So is it THC?
Yeah, the THC levels.
Is it higher or?
Yeah, but it's too concentrated, too strong. It's
It's too perfect.
No. I always called it polio weed, where for the length of your high, you're experiencing the disease polio. You're on the couch and you can't lift your arms and your legs. Where outdoor Northern California weed, it's, it grew up happy. It's like free-range chicken. It grew up in sunlight and
Hilarious.
Yeah, and,
organic weed?
It's organic weed.
Happy farmer organic weed.
Yeah, so it was made with love and not with anger, like probably a lot of grow houses. So right now is harvest season for for everywhere in North America for plants, and especially Northern California for the weed.
And they call it trim season.
Call it trim season. So we learned a very funny new terminology, because all these people go in Ukiah, Northern California, where all these famous weed growing operations are happening. They need trimmers. So the trimmers not only they go there seasonal, not only do they get paid for trimming, but they'll be given a bunch of weed. So we learned while we were in Arcata that these people are called trimmigrants.
Because they're from all over the world.
Yeah.
Spain, Mexico, Ireland. A lot from Ireland.
Yeah, there was a kid from Manchester at the show the other day.
Manchester.
So the main square in Arcata, California, the plaza, it doesn't exist in San Francisco anymore, but when I lived in San Francisco in the 1990s, you had all these Grateful Dead, really kind of dirty hippies. And you see these people up in Arcata now. I guess they all went up there when San Francisco got too expensive, but like dirty mountain hippies. And hey, I love hippies. I'm not making fun of hippies. I'm just talking about...
I have a hippie soul.
These people are obviously sleeping outside and foraging for food. How many, from our hotel window, how many people did you see digging through the garbage looking for food?
Oh my God, it was hilarious. I could have written a short story about the garbage on the corner. There were maybe 4 people, yeah, exactly 4 people, going for the same fast food looking bag in the trash can. And they all open it. And it was in a short time too. Like maybe every 10 minutes. It was ridiculous. And you're right, they're dirty. They have
dirty.
layers of dirt on their
Yeah.
face. They have layers of clothing that are dirty. And some of them had the, what's this called? The long hair? Dreads. And it just looks nasty, Very nasty. And
and we're not criticizing their fashion
around.
sense. We're criticizing the
The
fact
dirtiness.
that these people were really sleeping outside in the dirt. Some had dogs. They all had big backpacks and layered clothing, and so they're hanging out in this main square. And they are like the dirtiest kind of Haight Street hippie from 1992 that used to follow the Grateful Dead. Those kind of deadheads look like well-washed, well-manicured people compared to these people.
Well-manicured.
So they're up there smoking pot, playing bongos,
dancing around,
juggling. They're just sitting out and one guy had a ball that was like a crystal ball, and he's like rolling it from one arm over his shoulders.
Just the whole day.
Like circus performers. And they're out there smoking weed. And you and I were walking around the square, and there was these 2 cops, and I would have so much fun if I lived there. I walked up to the cop and I said, "Officer, I think there's some people smoking marijuana in the main square." And the guy goes, "I just gave out 8 citations. I know. I just gave one to someone from France, someone from Spain, someone from Ireland. The whole world comes here for the trimming season." So it's interesting. It's a great place to go. I mean, especially if you like weed. But Arcata, and we stay at the Arcata Hotel Arcata. I did a show at the Minor Theater, which is this movie theater that opened in 1914, and the only two live performers that have ever performed at the Minor Theater, the owner was telling me, was Harry Houdini and Tom Rhodes. So they have not had a live performer since Harry Houdini. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. And the hotel is really, really cool. It's almost ghost-like. And you definitely know, oh, there are a few ghosts living in this hotel.
Definitely some ghosts. Yeah. And it's definitely a place you're going to sleep with the bathroom light on.
Oh, yeah, we did. we slept with 4 lights on or something, right?
Yeah.
Because we had 2 rooms. They were very nice. They gave us a suite. But I'm telling you, it is all old. You know those nice radiators that has decoration on them? Gold radiator with decoration on the radiator
like
itself. Ornate, yeah. So they were across the room, and old bathtub with great strength of water.
Yeah, there's like a raised bathtub on like the claw legs.
Yeah.
And the water pressure is great.
But there's always something about the light. You know, the light of the room. It looks like there's ghosts around. You know, and it's good that I didn't have trouble sleeping because I do believe in ghosts. Surprisingly, from my Suriname upbringing. But it's a nice experience to have.
But it's funny in the hallways in our Hotel Arcata are these pictures of the Arcata main square, like throughout history.
The old photos. It makes it even more scary.
Which is really cool. So like everybody's got black suits on and black hats, and you can see like Model T Fords parked around the square and everything. And then you look out the window onto the square, and it's unshaven, unwashed hippies and colorful tie-dyed kicking hacky sacks and throwing frisbees around and shit.
Yeah.
So, and I asked a bunch of people at what point, because this was a big logging industry. It was logging and fishing up there forever. That was what the whole town and area was known for. So I asked a few people, when was that turning point in history that changed it from logging town to hippie weed village? And apparently it was the 1960s, and it was the Vietnam War. A lot of people had gone to Arcata to change their identities so they wouldn't have to go fight in Vietnam. And then also a lot of returning soldiers came back from Vietnam and they brought marijuana seeds with them, and that the area was great for growing pot in the woods without people finding it. So it was Vietnam, man. It was Nam, man.
Yeah, I do think that people that we talked to were, so how you say it? They were so obsessed with the weed, just or conversations I overheard when we were eating breakfast. People saying, "Yeah, I don't smoke it all day," but it's just all these conversations were constantly about weed. It makes it very interesting, People are so obsessed with the thing that all they can talk about is weed.
Yeah.
And I don't think they know this themselves,
No, I don't think so. But if you're listening to this and you're really into weed, that would be a good trip for you to take to go to Arcata. And if you're not into weed, you and I went and explored the redwoods. We went to the Redwood National Park, which wasn't that great. To drive down the Avenue of the Giants, which is all these redwood trees, that is amazing.
That's a good tip. Yeah.
And then we drove to, we had this tip to go to Fern Canyon. And apparently they filmed some of Jurassic Park there.
It was beautiful.
Really beautiful. And you were afraid.
I was shitting my pants. I was thinking about, this is a perfect place where a bear would be,
Yeah. If we had not seen The Revenant a few years ago, I don't think you'd have been as afraid. But you're picturing our throats getting ripped out by bear.
Yeah, because you see a lot of warnings. Okay, if you approach a bear, do this. If you approach an elk, do this. And when you go into the park, or actually it's just nature. It's not a park, it's a nature. It's somebody else's domain, right? Territory. You see all the warning signs. This is elk territory. This is bear territory. And I am very conscious that I am somebody else's territory,
Yeah.
So I am constantly aware that, okay, now something can jump up out of the bushes right now, And I'm from Rotterdam. I don't know what I would do if I see a bear. I would not do it what they advise me. Like, oh, what you gotta do is throw up your hands and just look big and then yell or something, right? And don't run away. Well, I think this city girl would do the stupid thing and just run. Yeah.
Run and yell and scream everything they tell you not to do.
Right. And in the middle, I would probably have a heart attack just out of the panic, Yeah.
Well, and then you can see elk everywhere.
Yeah.
And we saw these signs, and it said, "Caution, aggressive elk," and then and it's like a highway government sign, and it shows an elk with a big rack on its head, jamming some stupid tourist in the ass, and that's aggressive elk behavior.
Yeah, and I don't like unpredictable behavior. I don't like animals too much. Even dogs. I don't trust animals because they can do anything they want, They're unpredictable. They're not human species, so I'm always a little bit afraid of them.
Yeah, I mean, I love cats and dogs. It's too bad you're allergic to them.
Do you like cats and dogs?
I do. Always loved them, yeah.
Do you want to have a cat and dog in the future?
I would prefer a child. Easier to train. They can let themselves out when they have to pee.
They talk back.
Yeah.
Right.
So just to go up and explore those redwoods and the way northern part of California. You know what the story we should tell is about Crescent City and about that thrift store.
I think we told that once.
Have we told that story?
But we can tell it again. I just want to make one point. I didn't get that Humboldt County is so noble for their weed, right? There's so much drugs there that I don't understand, because when you go into the woods in the forest, it's so beautiful that I cannot imagine, why do you need the drugs for? It's like double up. It's like, just enjoy this, see what it does to you with your own brain and your own emotions and feelings, and see what kind of high you can get from the nature. Just seeing it by yourself, this immense density of trees around you, and super high as well, and just being there, the sound, because we were by ourselves, it was not touristy, nobody was out there. You can just hear so many great sounds, just the wind through the trees, and there was a lot of leaves falling the moment that we took pictures, and it was just so magical, And then I cannot imagine that people think, this would be a great time to take a hit, Like, no, this is it. When
I was younger, like when I was in my 20s, I always thought, wow, this experience would only be better if I, had a buzz on. And I took a couple of hits. I only through Ashna and I have I've been rehabilitated enough to think, oh, wow, yeah, nature. You're supposed to enjoy this with a clear, natural mind.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a new concept to me.
To enjoy things by yourself, you mean?
And just to not be high all the time. To treat it like a treat.
Yes.
You're saying, I don't see how people could do that, and I'm saying, oh, I fully see it. And then Northern California is famous for its weed the way Italy and France is famous for wine and...
Yeah, but they're famous for wine, but they're not famous for getting drunk and wasted.
Yeah, but nobody tells you that.
Yeah. Not getting intoxicated.
Who's going to go to France and have, half a glass of wine?
No, they do. It's moderation and it's fine tasting.
Dutch people might.
It's fine tasting. It's they treat their wine just like their food, like olive oil. it's just fine tasting. It's a product that goes into your taste, flavors.
Yeah. Well, so Arcata, the interesting thing about it, and you and I, like 4 years in a row, we've gone up because we wanted to explore this area. And, when we weren't living anywhere a few years ago, I had a week off between San Francisco and Portland, and we wanted to drive up that West Coast and then also go see the Oregon coast, which I had never seen. So I want to come back to that story about Crescent Heights, but what I want to say now is we were never in Arcata on a Saturday. And so they're not just known for their weed, they're also known for their paprika and red bell peppers. So apparently that area is like great for growing peppers, we were told after the fact. So on Saturday, they kick out all the dirty, unwashed hippies from the Arcata Plaza, and it's one of the greatest farmers markets I've ever seen. There's a band that plays by the William McKinley statue in the center, and then all in the perimeter. Madison, Wisconsin was like this. All around Madison, Wisconsin, around the state capitol building, on Saturday, they had this great farmers market. And that's the only place like that I've ever seen. So remember, there was different bakers selling bread. We bought goat cheese. We bought a ton of paprika peppers. And that was pretty amazing. And that has nothing to do with weed or hippies.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I'm having this paprika right now because we traveled with it. We bought 3 huge ones.
Yeah, it was like $2 a pound. We got like 3 pounds.
And it's so crispy and fresh. It tastes like they put butter in it. It's buttery.
Yeah.
It's juicy and buttery. It's very nice.
These are the biggest paprikas I've ever seen in my life. They're like the size of a small pumpkin.
And they're super red.
Yeah. So years ago when we were taking that trip to go up to the Oregon coast, I like to take my time. I love to go to the used bookstores. Those used bookstores in Eureka are the best. Eureka Books, and then there's the Booklegger on the corner. So then you got after Eureka is Arcata, and then there's like Klamath or something, and then
it's just little tiny towns just on the coast that have their own character.
Yeah. And so I love stopping at used bookstores and antique shops. And Crescent City, the furthest little town at the way tippy top part of the state of California, is really kind of a horrendous, shitty little town. It's not as pretty as the other places. Like Arcata has got their city park. They left this swatch of redwood trees. The Arcata local community park, right on the edge of town, is this massive grove of friggin' redwood trees. It's great.
And it's a student town. It's a university. Right? And there is this huge, beautiful square that they left there for ages. There's a statue in the middle of it. It's beautiful cemetery, and it has 3 or 2 big palm trees in the middle. So you can see the city is proud of their history.
Yeah. Okay, should I tell the William McKinley story? So William McKinley, there's a statue to William McKinley in the center of the square. And very close to Arcata is McKinleyville. I don't know what it is they have with William McKinley. But William McKinley was a United States president who was assassinated by a Spanish anarchist. And I Googled or looked on Wikipedia William McKinley. I read his life story, and because I couldn't figure out why they have a statue to this guy. What the connect, because he never had visited there, never even visited Northern California. So why does he have a statue? William McKinley specifically is the president that started America's interventionist policies, where we became the police of the world. And his policies put in motion of us getting into the Spanish-American War. And then also William McKinley was pro-business, pro-corporation. He gave business owners rights over the working man and power over workers not being able to protest wages and certain things like that. So I told the people in Arcata, you should have a statue to the guy who assassinated that fucking dude.
Didn't you used to have a great joke about when you go into a new town, where to find the best weed in the first hour?
Oh, that's what Ari Shafir, before he went to Europe, he asked me, how do you find weed when you go to different cities in Europe that aren't Holland? And he was going to Spain or somewhere like that. I said, well, all you have to do when you go anywhere in Europe, find the main square and sit by the statue, and before too long, some kind of non-resident foreigner person will come up to you and ask you if you want some weed or some hash or something.
Maybe I'm sorry, go ahead.
And Ari, he swears by it. He said that was the greatest travel advice he'd ever been given.
Maybe it started in Humboldt County. Maybe it started in Arcata on that square.
Maybe. It's great.
Funny.
Okay, so years ago we were going up Northern California to go explore the Oregon coast. We stopped in Crescent City, and we were at this thrift store, and we started talking to the woman who owned it, and there was this rack of beautiful women's clothing, and it was these like 1940s, 1950s, that wonderful women's style of skirt suits with the little jacket and the matching cloth and beautiful skirts.
In a big, beautiful box.
But it was hats and purses, and the woman told us this is an incredible story, that this man just died and he was in his 90s. He was from Crescent City, lived there his whole life, except for the 2 or 3 years when he went to fight in World War II in like France or Germany or wherever. And other than that, he lived his entire life in Crescent City, and nobody knew until he died that he was a cross-dresser, and that the guy had impeccable taste in women's clothing, like that kind of like Audrey Hepburn, beautiful like Lauren Bacall, classy power businesswoman suit type clothes. But
also a few dresses from the 20s with all the pearls and the.
No, those were the 50s. It had like.
Also a few of the roaring 20s I saw.
Okay, but I just thought, what an amazing story. Here's this guy like fought for his country, maybe even was wounded, liberating Europe, and he can't walk around his hometown in the nice, expensive, badass power woman suit that he has.
Yeah, the woman was saying isn't that the saddest story? That's how he said it, and she explained it. She said, maybe he was married and had a family, and he could never, ever, tell the secret. And now he died, the secret is out, and he lived. This is what made her very sad, is that he had to live with this secret his whole life.
Yeah. I could just see him like having a little tea party by himself, all dressed up, sitting there, pinky up, having some tea with his little hat pinned to his head and matching purse.
Doing some tira.
And he couldn't go out and show off this,
He should have a podcast.
It's great. Right now I'm wearing pearls with my Lauren Bacall brown skirt suit.
And I couldn't choose from the brown bag or the red bag. Just phone in what I should do. It wouldn't be fun if we had a phone in. It'd be so cool.
If we had phone in, we can do that.
If we have phone in people, and they can ask questions. I would love that.
Cool. All right. Well,
live phone in.
We'll set up a hotline for people to call. So anybody who wants to call into the show and ask a question, email us through my website.
We're going to answer every question.
TomRhodes.net. And we'll answer your questions, and then we'll figure out a way for people to call in, and you can record questions and we will answer them. So what are your other impressions from this great trip we just took?
Well, the one thing that I already said about the weed and the nature that I cannot imagine, that you need drugs for something that's already giving drugs from your brain, And
a brain bath of natural amphetamines.
Yeah. And the old theaters are great. What? Are you doing something while I'm answering the question? Is that what you needed?
No, I was asking you a question about what were your other impressions.
I was just scared for these animals. I think that's
it. I think one of my favorite things about the West Coast is that there are no Civil War statues. And the William McKinley statue, they could replace it with that Arabic-looking guy from the Zigzag Rolling Paper. If it's such a weed town. Or Bob Marley.
Haha, that'd be funny. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys this. So being in that town, Arcata, really made me think, oh my God, I'm really getting older. Meaning that I really got a little bit, I was criticizing everybody in that town, I was like, what is this, the fucking 60s?
Right.
We were walking down the street and this guy came dancing and running in zigzag. Oh, funny, he just said zigzag. But he was running in zigzag with his thumb up. And he had like more of a gay movement. So he went like bent to the right and to the left. And then he came to us and said, sorry. And I just, like, what is this, a fucking 60s? He was so intoxicated as well. And just my behavior, criticizing everything I saw, I just thought, holy shit, I'm getting older. I'm one of those old people who's always criticizing and making remarks about things. Thought it was really funny.
Yeah,
and that's why that joke came from.
Yeah, definitely being around the hippies and burnouts makes you feel like an old conservative person.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was great. I don't know if I could ever live up there, but I love taking.
It's nice to visit.
I love taking a trip up there once a year. And the theater show I did in the Minor Theater was sold out. It was great. Everybody loved it.
Yeah.
And I want to do a tour next year of small theaters around the Northwest because there's so many great old theaters like the Throckmorton that I'm doing tonight that were built in the 1880s, 1890s. They seat 100, 200 people. And I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, and it's a great little town, we're talking about the trimmigrants right now, but the town is amazing. They have this great, great ice cream store.
Arcata Scoop.
Arcata Scoop, and they sell homemade ice cream. We had, vanilla rose almonds or something?
Vanilla almond rose. Wow.
And they have this big, how would you say it, babe? It's a big...
swing chair.
Swing chair. Yeah. And it was so cool. It is in a house, in a Victorian house. They sell the ice cream in a Victorian house, converted to an ice cream shop. And then the how do you call it again? The
swing chair.
The big swing chair is in the house.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, it's like it had wooden edges that were carved like giraffes, and then there was a bench chair on either side with a table in the middle, so it looks almost like half a picnic table.
Yeah.
But it was on the swing contraption, and so you're on your little half bench, and we're just sitting there swinging,
eating ice cream
on the wooden giraffes, licking our vanilla almond rose ice cream.
And there is so much culture out there. There's some more music. They have great jazz and blues nights. There's always something going on. It's really, really nice, nice place. And then your friend from high school lives there as a bookstore.
Guy that I
really
grew
cool.
up with a few blocks over, Jay Herzog. He works at the Newtown Books. There's so many great. We go there to. One of the reasons I get off going to this part of California is for the used bookstores in Arcata and then in Eureka. I mean, Jesus, we found the Trial of Socrates for $5. We found Will Durant's History of Philosophy. You found that book of essays on comedy.
That one is great.
I got Maupassant's Complete Works for fucking $3.
I got the best prosa, the short stories, right? The short story prosa, the best, a compilation.
Yeah, and then also I found a biography on Guy de Maupassant, which I've never seen a biography, and I'm reading the back of it. He died in a nut house. I had no idea. All he had to do was put on women's clothes and walk up and down the street in Crescent City, California.
Okay, let's talk about other things.
We
had a great...
We watched, we finished the Ken Burns Vietnam documentary. And it was America's fear of communism that got us into the Vietnam War. There was no strategy. All the way back to Truman. Every president made mistakes. All they had to do was help the Vietnamese. The Vietnamese thought like America would embrace them because they had the same history with getting their independence from England. Ho Chi Minh, in his first speech in Hanoi, quoted Thomas Jefferson. All human beings are created equal with inalienable rights.
And all they wanted is to unite the two parts of Vietnam.
Yeah. So there was an interesting fact that I read or heard recently. It wasn't in that documentary, but it was just interesting to see how divided America was. The Kent State shooting, where these students were protesting and they sent in the National Guard. The governor was named James Rhodes, and he's the asshole that sent them in.
Not related?
Well, I am related to a few assholes, but not that one. So these soldiers killed these students. That's one of the images of the war. This girl screaming over her dead friend who's on the ground. And at the time, 58% of Americans thought the students who were murdered deserved it. And then also there was that My Lai massacre where they had this, what was the guy's name? Colonel Calley, I think it was, Lieutenant Calley. Only they just slaughtered this My Lai village, men, women, and children, elderly people.
But it was such a weird, crazy... what is it? Catch
22.
Catch 22, because they had to find Viet Cong, right?
Yeah.
But everybody could be a Viet Cong, so they had to protect the ones that were not. So that's really how can you even manage to do that? That's impossible. Yeah. So it was an impossible task they were there for. I mean, just the earth, sorry, this is Dutch. Just the...
strategy.
Just the way of your task.
Yeah.
Is already so wrong that it will drive you crazy.
Well, and they had no strategy in the war. They fought the war. My dad fought in Vietnam, so I grew up obsessed with it. Read tons of books on it. Saw every movie on it. Talked with my dad about it. The way we fought the Vietnamese is the way we fought the Native Americans. Fort style. Everybody sleeps in a fort, and then you go out all day and you fight, and then you go back and sleep in the fort at night. Instead of war is like a football game.
Yeah.
You keep marching forward and you keep conquering all of the earth until all of the earth has been conquered. But so they would fight for the same earth over and over. Yeah. They'd fight for the same hills over and over. And Nixon was a lying motherfucker. He
such an ego tripper.
Evil fucker, man. That he derailed the peace talks so he could get elected. And Lyndon Johnson, through wiretaps, knew that he had done it and said it was treason, but he let the guy get away with it. And then it was Nixon's dirty obsession with his enemies and wiretaps is what led to his downfall. But it's interesting how Nixon only cared about his own advancement, self-preservation, and could not take any blame for any mistakes. I don't know.
It's very tough because I think to be a president you have to have a certain personality to just go all the way to to get in that race to be and to want to be a president of the United States. You do have to have a certain kind of ego to pursue that job. So that's the double sword, that yes, it could be powerful to have that drive to do it, but the other side of the sword is, yes, when you are the president, you will have that same big ego that brought you there, and then some presidents have it bigger, like Nixon, like Donald Trump, and some people have it in a good kind of way, like Obama.
Well, it's really cool how they had the secret presidential recordings of Lyndon Johnson and Nixon that were cut into this documentary, so you could see what was going on in their minds, what they were telling advisors. Yeah. And Nixon he's only concerned about elections.
Yeah, what kind of man they were.
Yeah. To the American people and said, we've stopped the bombing, we're negotiating, peace is at hand, and then he gets reelected and then fucking starts the bombing again. Just a total evil son of a bitch.
Yeah, like Truman. That was another fuckwit.
But also, so Truman was a fuckwit. So I found the thing that I was looking for. So just how divided the country was with, and Nixon thought that the anti-war movement and the protesters were all being directed from Moscow. That of course it couldn't be that these were good-hearted people who wanted, to end violence and murder that their country was perpetrating on people. He thought that it was a communist plot against America to weaken us. So the guy was completely deranged. So anyway, this guy, Lieutenant Calley, he was the only one found guilty of the My Lai massacre, where all these, men, women, and children and elderly people were murdered and some women were raped. Like I said, 58% of Americans thought that those Kent State student protesters deserved to die. 79% of Americans disagreed with the verdict, the Calley verdict, where he was convicted of wrongdoing. Of
79 of the people. How did they do the survey anyway?
It was like I don't know, like a Pew. I don't know.
Oh, if it was Pew, then they done it right.
Yeah, these were all Pew. Polls.
But it's weird, one thing I want to say about this whole communism threat or communism fear mongering is that. The sad thing about the Vietnam now is, Vietnam War is so long ago over. And still that whole communist socialist fear is still there. And that's the one reason, this is my opinion, it's not a fact, that's the one reason why we don't have a normal healthcare system. Is because people still think that there's something wrong with the socialism, communism system. Going from how the healthcare was built up in history, is that's really the reason why that healthcare system didn't get
passed. Yeah, you showed me.
I think Truman was one.
Yeah,
something that he did okay is trying to gather universal healthcare, right?
Yeah, and you showed me some things that you were reading about it where. It's the first time I've ever heard a siren in Mill Valley. I forget which president.
There's a cat in the tree.
Eisenhower, Truman, whoever. They shot it down because they said universal health care for citizens was communism. And socialism and how it.
And they made people afraid. You're gonna have bad medicine, and you have waiting hours, and the quality is gonna go down. It's so. so that just making people believe certain things because you want to be elected, because you want to score as the next candidate, is just so criminal. Because in the long run, you talk about generations further, it's still, you're planting a seed that is really difficult to remove just because you wanted to be elected.
Yeah, but look at this country. No health care for the citizens and no gun restrictions whatsoever.
Exactly.
So it's
the gun restriction is getting so...
How can this country, so wealthy and so educated, not have basic common sense of what is good for the ultimate survival of their citizens? Regular health checkups and fucking common sense gun laws.
Yes, I'm reading this book and it's amazing. It's called How America Went Haywire. And it is about that America is based, should I say based, or America is based on, zealots.
Founded by zealots.
Founded, that's what it is. Founded by zealots and primarily the people who came in the beginning of the first decades
were whack job Jesus freaks.
And during the years following that, the American culture was very much based on these crazy thoughts, like, oh, we gotta find gold, all these Puritans that came over, they wanted to have a religion that was even more traditional, conservative than they had in England.
England wasn't religious enough.
Yeah, so they came here.
Because they wanted a more strict, stringent religious country.
Yeah, the jihadists or the ISIS. So a bunch of ISIS Christians.
So we were founded by the Taliban of Christians.
Something like that, yeah. Exactly. Maybe Taliban is a better example. And they came here and they started this whole culture of, hey man, you can believe everything because we are equal. You can do anything you want, but you can also believe everything you want. And the writer Kurt Anderson is making this wonderful, funny claim, saying, in America, you can do whatever you want. The problem is, you can do whatever you want. That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah, the great thing and the bad thing about America is you can do whatever you want. You can believe whatever you want. That Kurt Anderson book, it's called Fantasyland.
Fantasyland, How America
Went Haywire.
A 500-year history.
I'm going to read that book as soon as you're finished.
So
and
I just
last week's Atlantic magazine, half of the magazine was excerpts from this book. I read the magazine thing, and then Kurt Anderson right now is making all of the rounds on NPR and the Bill Maher show and podcasts and everything.
Oh yeah, he was in a Bill Maher show. I really liked it. So there is a little piece of text that I think this is just really what the book is about. So I'm gonna read it to you, and then maybe if you like it.
Lay it on us, Smoochie.
So in other words, mix epic individualism with extreme religion. Mix show business with everything else. Let all that steep and simmer for a few centuries. Run it through the anything goes 1960s and the internet age. The result is the America we inhabit today, where reality and fantasy are weirdly and dangerously blurred and commingled. That's the book. He just nailed it in that little tiny text.
Yeah, and he does say that it was the 60s with the culture of self-help and I don't know, like cults, different things like that kind of our present state of out of controlness.
Yeah.
Batshit crazy kind of was given birth in the 60s. But even he goes back to the founding fathers.
Oh yeah, he lays it out in
P.T. Barnum and all these different things to American
history. Lots of knowledge nuggets that you could so juicy knowledge nuggets that you're going to just talk with your friends in the bar on Friday night and they're going to be so blown away that you know this stuff. And he is funny as well. There's some paragraphs that I thought, holy shit, he's hilarious what a great humor this
Well,
guy
he's
had.
one of the founders of Spy Magazine, which was out in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And Spy Magazine was a really funny kind of satirical magazine.
Okay, cool.
Like National Lampoon. But National Lampoon had lost its thunder by then. Spy Magazine was great. I don't know why it went under, but he was one of the main dudes.
Well, what I want to say is that he really lays it out in detail, what happened. It's very encompassing, you know? You find a lot.
All-encompassing.
All-encompassing. I was close.
Yeah, very close.
All-encompassing?
All-encompassing.
All-encompassing. And I'm still at 1900, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is quarter of the book or something. But, yeah, every detail is being discussed. And I love that. It just says a lot. You know, how a country is founded says a lot about the identity of that country. And it's very much, I think, that every American should read this book, you know, and make your own judgment, of course, you know. I mean, this is just the dude that wrote a book. But it gives you so much knowledge that you probably didn't even know that it came from somewhere, like the P.T. Barnum. You know, and that's how show business kind of started. And
and Buffalo Bill before P.T.
Yeah.
Barnum, of people hyping and selling shit that the products that weren't that couldn't live up to the hype.
And about the gold searching, that all these time there was no gold, but people just promising each other and with great marketing and sales techniques that they kept saying, hey, there's gold in the West, right? I'm sorry, not in the West, because later it was true, but in the beginning of founding America.
Oh yeah.
And you know what, people who go to America, the people who believe in that shit. So the gullibles went to America. And it didn't change, you know, we still have that culture. All those people who are thinking that the climate doesn't, that's just a hoax. Or the people who think with the gun control, you know, all these wrong, invalid arguments that are being shared through the NRA or other people who are for guns. Those most of the arguments are invalid, but people are so gullible. They just believe that shit, you know.
Yeah.
So it's and that's why we still have a problem with gun control. When those little babies were killed, nothing changed. This just baffles your mind, right?
Well, you know, there was the Howard Zinn book, The People's History of the United States, and I remember him talking about the pilgrims that came over, like. On the Mayflower, there was like 260 people.
Yeah.
And we think they were, you know, religious pilgrims who had been persecuted that came to have freedom of religion, which the truth, as you just said, they were religious whack jobs seeking a place where they could have a more puritanical form of Christianity and have more of a hardcore Christianity than the loose anything goes Church of England. But I remember from the Howard Zinn book that of those 260 pilgrims, only like 85, 86 of them were actual religious pilgrims. All the other ones were coming to the New World seeking their fortune.
Seeking gold, that there was none.
And that they didn't even have the smarts to feed themselves.
Yeah.
They were running around digging holes looking for gold everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that it took like some, you know, friendly Native Americans or whoever to, like, you know, say, hey, eat this piece of corn. But that they were obsessed with golds, the ones that weren't completely out of their mind with, you know.
And we're not talking about, you just come here for 3 months, you don't find and you go back. No, this goes on for generations. This goes on for decades. People still thinking after 5 years of not finding gold that there is still gold somewhere to be found, you know?
Right.
It was crazy. And also there's a great detail about, you know, after Purtis came that, what is it? Oh shit, was it the Pentecostal, the Baptist? I forgot.
Quakers.
The Quakers. No. This is the religion that everybody goes like speak in tongues and stuff like that.
Oh, that's the Pentecostals.
Pentecostal, yeah, I'm sorry. So in detail, it really explains all the Quakers, you know, all these little different branches of religion that started in America. It's so fascinating that it got founded by the particular person, how and who and when it got founded. For example, this religion where everybody speaks in tongues was so well marketed by this crazy guy who was full of life and who could sell everything. He can sell, even a shitty shoe he could sell. And that was the one who was talking.
Ice to the Eskimos. Or however
He says, no, you gotta feel God. God should go in through your soul, and it should make you lively. And you have to have this individual relationship with God. You don't need to go to church. And just the way he was telling this, and he was a great actor. He was a good actor. So in his church, he was telling the scriptures with such an enmity and how is it? Animation and great storytelling. I mean, that's how a particular branch starts, It's fascinating. And if you don't have time to read the whole book, you can just Google The Atlantic and Google Kurt Anderson.
Fantasyland, How America Went Haywire. I can't wait to read that book once you're finished.
You'll love it because it's full of knowledge nuggets.
Yeah.
And my brain is like a sieve. I forget a lot of things. A sieve.
Yeah.
So I already forget the names and the religion, what I tried to explain just yet. But I know you would absorb every detail in it. Oh my God, you will love it, Tom.
I love it. And I mean, I loved the Atlantic magazine that I read that was just excerpts from that. And then you've let me read a few passages. And one was about Buffalo Bill and how he had Sitting Bull toured with.
Right.
And so he took advantage of this time when America really had a nostalgia for the Old West. And it was only 5 years after the Battle of Little Bighorn. And Sitting Bull actually was one of the commanding generals for the Sioux Indians who defeated Custer. So he did these big, huge reenactments of the Battle of Little Bighorn. And then after that, after the Battle of Little Bighorn, Buffalo Bill had scalped a Native American in retaliation. And he said, this scalp is for Custer. So they would reenact the Battle of Little Bighorn with Sitting Bull. And what a whore he must have felt like. Sitting Bull, thinking, oh, this is, friggin', white people's version of this story. And then after that reenactment with horses and wagons, and they had real Native Americans, playing the parts of and getting killed show after show. Then he would reenact cutting off the scalp for Custer.
Yeah.
So the excerpt that you had me read, I never knew that that Sitting Bull, he quit the show probably because he thought it was total bullshit, and then he went back and was living in his cabin and was killed by local authorities.
Yeah.
And then at this big world exhibition, they had the cabin supposedly that Abraham Lincoln had been raised in, and right next to it was the cabin where Sitting Bull had been killed.
Yeah, that's weird.
So it's about hype and American history and the glossing of certain versions of American history to manipulate nostalgia and sentiment and how we want to believe whatever we want to believe.
Yeah. I want to read a few things that I thought was
Go for it.
I think this was a funny sentence. Check this out. The disagreements dividing Protestants from Catholics were about the eternal consistency of the magical rules within their common fantasy scheme. Just thought it was hilarious.
Wow.
And then you got this lawyer. His name was Alexis de Tocqueville, and he made this huge journey through America, and he wrote. He took notes about what his interpretation of America. His writings are throughout the book, and it's just it's amazing how he just nails everything from from a different perspective, and how he, is very much, what's how you say, pinning it? Whatever. He just nails it, yeah.
Nailing it.
Okay, one more.
Yes.
Adams wrote to a Dutch friend that the Bible consists of millions of fables, tales, legends, and that Christianity had prostituted all the arts to the sordid and detestable purposes of superstition and fraud.
Wow.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Okay, so we got our book for this week.
Fantasyland.
Fantasyland.
Hey, so let me just say a couple last things about the Vietnam War, and the Ken Burns thing. So we were afraid of the domino effect of Asia going communist, our fear of communism, and the domino effect that it was coming down from China, that all these Southeast Asian countries would go communist. But we had no understanding of the Vietnamese people and Vietnamese history, because the Vietnamese hate the Chinese, and they had 4 wars with them throughout history, and then they had a war with China after we left. So we were worried about, China and the communist influence. And there's a great story about when the Chinese were going to invade Vietnam in like the 1500s or 1300s from ships coming down the Mekong River, that they cut down trees and made them into big spikes, and they put them in the river. So when all the Chinese wooden ships came down the river, they hit the spikes and they all sank, and the Vietnamese. So like Vietnamese people are like small in stature, and look, I think that's the mistake a lot of people have made throughout history is, I can kick that little guy's ass. It's like when I've met UFC fighters and they're only like 5'2", and you think, I could take that guy.
Right.
And then you see him fight and you're like, oh my God, that's like the most deadly one-punch knockout artist ever. So the Vietnamese were vastly underestimated, and they had no desire to go communist. They wanted to go, they thought America would help them gain independence from the French, which they never got. And here's the big factoid I want to lay on you and everyone else before we say goodbye. I read this somewhere in an article recently. It was not in the Ken Burns documentary, but the United States is almost 250 years old. Of those 250 years, we have only not been at war for 21 years of those almost 250 years.
Wow.
So we are a war machine, and that keeps the profits rolling.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah.
All I want to say is the more guns are around, the more gun deaths there will gonna be. Period.
Forever and ever. Okay, so let's end the episode with some happy news. Do you have any happy... In the 1972 presidential election, Richard Nixon won every state except for Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. It was a complete landslide. Okay, that's not the happy news. Oh, I loved in the Ken Burns documentary, this blonde, gay North Vietnamese Viet Cong soldier. They had him telling his story. And it's just, I just love that, he's gay and had a blonde hairdo. And like... I loved all the people who got interviewed, especially that lady. She really had a great, strong... Which one, the black anti-war protester, or the woman who was the nurse in Play Cool? Oh, that woman.
Yeah,
oh,
she was a reporter, I think, a journalist.
No, she was she was a South Vietnamese. She was wonderful.
Yeah. There's also a war prisoner, POV, right? Prisoner of war.
Prisoner of war.
Who was
POW.
And he is a writer, so he described in very, eloquent ways the things that he experienced. Yeah, all those people who they interviewed were very, well chosen. Just to create this whole big story without people saying, "Yeah, I was in the war," you know.
Right.
It was really well documented documentary. And
Oh,
I do have to say something. I have to confess something. One thing that I really liked about the documentary, because the thing is, it was making me super depressed. I didn't even watch the last two because I got so depressed about it. But the thing that I like, this is Tom's phone going.
That's my phone going off.
Pick it up, babe. The one thing that I liked is to see how people, when they looked like when they were younger,
Yeah.
and to see how they are now when they were older.
Yeah.
Just to see the difference, like, wow, this guy was and everybody just looked so handsome when they were younger.
When they were young, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a funny detail.
Cool.
And this one guy who said, his hate was pure. His hate was pure. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then you saw a photo of him when he was young and he was protesting with the...
When he got back from fighting in
anti-war.
Vietnam, he became an anti-war protester.
And that photo was just
Yeah.
so beautiful.
He had a beard and long hair, and yeah,
Yeah.
that was cool.
And I love that images in the history in the history of history. That images are so powerful. Photography is so powerful that it can change a whole nation's discussion about something. There were two photographs that changed the
course of the war.
The course,
well,
yeah.
there was three. There was the South Vietnamese soldier who executed the guy on television, which was on the news, and then there's that famous image of the guy holding the gun up to his head.
Yeah.
The captured Viet Cong guy, and
the girl running.
The video
naked
footage.
girl.
The guy falls on the ground, and there's blood shooting
out of his
head.
yeah.
But it was the cover of the New York Times and all the newspapers was the guy holding the gun up to his head. It's an iconic image.
Yeah.
And then the other image was the naked little Vietnamese girl running. She had just gotten napalm dropped on her, and her skin's burning. She's running down the street.
Yeah.
And then the third image is of the Kent State shooting with the dead student on the ground, and then her friend screaming over her. So that was it.
I think that's positive, like a positive note that, arts or whatever, that it's still so very powerful. Or either a song, that it can change a whole nation course of thinking.
Yeah.
I think that's positive. That meaning that we are still human somewhere. There's still hope for humanity.
Well, what's really positive is if you go to Vietnam, the Vietnamese have no anger towards Americans. They think we were, they had a border war with Cambodia. They had a war with China after we left. So they've had 2 wars since we left. They just look at us as one of many in a long line of opponents. Mm-hmm. It's not, they don't, have anger and hatred. I mean, if you went out to the countryside, I remember when we were filming Viva Vietnam, there was some kid that got, his parents yelled at him because they found out we were American. But for the most part, it's a wonderful, happy place to visit. And I think I'm going to go back to Hanoi, maybe in March, and ride motorcycles in North Vietnam next year.
Great. Well, guys, thank you for listening. Our microphone broke last week, so we couldn't really record a podcast. I'm so sorry. This one I'm not going to edit, of course. And
why would you? It's just got one nugget of gold after another.
Yeah.
So visit Arcata, California. Come visit Mill Valley. And enjoy the wonderful old theaters. And buy my fucking live album, All Hail Laughter. You're going to love it.
Read the book of Kurt Anderson. Watch
Fantasyland.
Watch PBS, Vietnam Ken Burns documentary. And stay positive, even though, all these horrible things are going on. Just find something that can lift you up a little bit.
Yeah, pop a wheelie and ride it halfway down Elm Street.
Yeah. So what do you think of naming our baby?
Chuck?
Paprika.
As a middle name, I like it.
Bell pepper.
Pop. I like it. Okay, shalom amigos y amigas. Long may you run.
I love you guys. Don't forget to send your questions. We would love to answer it. I mean, just send everything. Like dating advice. You know, I would love to talk about that. Whatever.
TomRhodes.net. Just go to my website. You can email me through my website, tomrhodes.net. And that is today's episode. Hooray for humanity.
Hooray for humanity.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat. 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and carrying signs. Mostly say hooray for our side. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Strikes deep into your life, it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the man come and take you away. We better stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going on.